It's 1:33. It is Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket here at the Hilton Anatole, and at our table right now, it is a fantastic thrill to introduce the great Brett Favre at our table, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, Brett.
Fantastic thrill?
It really is, if you only knew.
Welcome. You look real excited.
No, I am. Welcome to town.
Thank you.
Hope your experience has gone quite well.
Oh, it's been great. Great crowd. Better than I had expected, but it's been fun.
You know, it's interesting, your links with Dallas in some respect that go all the way back to you being a kid. I kind of forgot that. Always associated you with the Saints as a kid, but you were also a Cowboy fan growing up.
Well, Cowboys had a lot more success.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I was a diehard Cowboys fan. Loved the Saints, but really it was more Archie. You know, this year's Archie's year.
Yeah.
Of course, it never was. But yeah, my dreams were always of being Roger Staubach.
That's fascinating. So when you were at the peak of your youth and craziness in the National Football League, a very impressionable time for me. One of my favorite parts about your game was tackling your teammates in the end zone. And I especially like the fact that you were told to stop it.
Yeah, I don't think I would have stopped until Mike Holmgren said $5,000. And I thought, it's over. I was a tightwad anyway, so if he had said $5, I think I'd have quit.
How'd that start?
I don't,
tackling teammates.
I don't know. I just kind of like picking up Donald Driver, in the latter part of my career. It was spontaneous, and I think that is what the people who enjoyed watching my career liked about it, is that nothing was scripted, good or bad. And that was just the excitement just kind of got the best of me, and I thought it was a good time to show guys how to tackle.
They always, at least early on, they seemed quite surprised that they were being tackled.
Oh, after that, but then they started scoring and running, like looking around, which I thought was interesting. I always find a way to sneak up on them.
You were an immense fan favorite, not just amongst Green Bay fans, but football fans. Do you think that was because of that enthusiasm, or also the gunslinging aspect in a sport that is extremely coached hard to play the percentages all the time?
I don't know for certain, but I would say that a combination of several things, those being key ingredients, the gunslinger and the spontaneous whatever, and I think being humble, where I could, and I always use this as an analogy, is that the guy sitting in the stands would say, now if I played, that would be me, and the things you say and how you play, and and I always took a lot of pride in that.
All right, this is Brett Favre with us on Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket. So some of your most incredible plays were extremely risky decisions.
Maybe for you.
Some of them didn't turn out so well. But I would say this, what I admired most about your career in many respects was the fact that you were not changing. And that was consistent for about 20 years. There were times where you might adjust a little bit, but for the most part, you were going to be Brett the whole way. You were going to be stubborn that your way could work.
Yeah, and I think, what makes a player great is hard to change. And for me, yeah, there were times where I knew dumping the ball off, for example, would be, statistically speaking, and I talk about this at the end of a game, for example. We're down by 17. There's 2 minutes left. We got the ball, and I can complete 12 balls in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not going to score, but I could help my rating. And, statistically, at the end of the year, you'll look back and, yeah, there'll be a loss, but from a statistic, you go, guy played pretty good.
Yeah.
That never crossed my mind. And there was any time I felt like we had a chance to win, and it may have been a very slim chance, I was going to do everything I could to, to see that through. There was no way I was going to take the easy one, which would be the easy way out, to be honest with you. That was just not my mentality.
Yeah, it's interesting that some of your most intriguing moments were in defeat. I think, for instance, of the Rams playoff game where you did exactly what you just demonstrated, where you're like, it kept making the hole a little bit deeper, but that was kind of the essence of Brett Favre's career, is that we're going to win or die trying.
Well, the last 2 interceptions in that game, I think I threw 6. Had we had a little more time, I could have broke the all-time. But the last 2 in that game, I'd gotten to a point where it's like, you got to be kidding me every time. So I dumped them off. And both of them were tipped to the linebacker, and I'm like, forget this. I'm going to throw it down. And it was stupid because we were not going to win the game by dumping it off at this point. But I'd kind of, all right, okay, I've had enough. And they get picked, and I'm kind of like, that's not you.
Right.
So
in the 90s especially, you won 3 straight MVPs, and during that time, you could sense the national announcers really dug your scene. John Madden is always linked to you, but I think there were a lot of announcers that said, wow, this guy's different, and we really admire the way he goes about his business. And that happened. And then after that, it was kind of a tipping point where it seemed to me a lot of other people seemed to resent the approval you had. Did you perceive that? And did you wonder how things changed so quickly?
No, I really didn't pay much attention. I mean, it's hard not to pay attention to John Madden, that part of it, or Frank Caliendo. I mean, but I think as far as the resentment goes, or however you want to look at it, it happens with every player or person who has success. Then there is this group, or fan base, or whatever that just,
they get tired of hearing about you.
Get tired of hearing about,
yeah.
I mean, but I really didn't pay much attention to it. I felt like, I mean, I was blessed to have had so much success, but I don't feel like it changed me. If anything, I got more humble and appreciative. Because believe me, I knew from day one I was lucky, and I always felt that way, and always knew that if I didn't look over my shoulder, the next guy would play, because that's the way I became a player. And so I never was to a point where it was all about me, and I was fine with that. I was content with that. I couldn't worry about what people were saying about me, good or bad.
We ask you to think about your career. One play. What's the one play that you think about?
Probably the pass to Sterling Sharp in the playoffs against Detroit.
Throwing against your body.
Yeah.
It didn't seem possible.
Yeah, it was law of physics, I think, or something. Which
Certainly
I was not very good at, by the way.
Not a coach.
But I did know. I mean, it's kind of like looking at a book. I said, that doesn't make sense. But I know I can throw that ball 60 yards, running that way.
Throwing it against your body, against the grain.
I was thinking ahead of time, this is going to be a magical moment. Believe me.
I would have bought it. Would you care to know mine?
Sure. Yours or yours of mine?
I've never played. I have a very short NFL career. You're not going to believe this. No, my Brett Favre play, and I claim to be an expert on your career, would be the Atlanta game, the final game at County Stadium. And it's 3rd and 2 from the 9-yard line. You have about 15 seconds to play, and you have no timeouts. And if you just play it safe, you kick the field goal and go to overtime and figure it out. But you run for the goal line, perhaps knowing, I'm sure you knew, that if you got tackled, the game's over and you lose.
I don't know if it even crossed my mind.
To this day. Let's consider that.
I do remember, that play when you brought it up. I'm like, oh, yeah, that was it. You play 20 years, you lose these plays.
Yes.
But I do remember Holmgren saying, whatever you do, don't run.
So what do you do?
And I said, you got it, Coach. And what I do, run.
And that's what's great about all those NFL Films clips with you and Holmgren. and
Yeah.
it makes a Packer fan wonder if you two could have stayed together.
Oh, we could have won a lot. Had he stayed, there's no telling what we would have won. I don't know what other people think, but there was much respect between the two of us. Was he hard on me? Yeah, rightfully so. But he brought out the best in me. He was perfect for me at that time in my career. He was patient. Even though as you watch those clips, it doesn't seem that way. But he saw something that maybe even I didn't see. I thought I could do it, but how I thought I would do it was not the way I actually did it. That he was able to rank. You got to remember, I ran the wishbone in high school.
Yes.
And an option sprint out passing game in college. I had no clue what reading the curl of flat was when I got to Pro Bowl. So all those reads that guys, they learn now from day one, when they get to Pro Bowl, it's like, I've been doing this forever. For me, it was, I'll just throw it through them until I figure out the reads.
And a lot of people may not know that your dad had a offense that you might have thrown 4 or 5 times in a game.
Probably not even. And it was not reading type stuff. It was bootleg, throw it deep, type of.
Most prolific passer in NFL history never really passed in high school. It seems like 2013 would have been a perfect time for you to come along because the league seems far more open.
Well, the league is open, and you look at colleges and the offense we run at our high school, it's a spread offense. We throw it 50, sometimes 60 times a game. I'm calling the plays, and I think had I been playing and it's kind of a, you have to kind of kick yourself sometimes. I go, boy, if I would have played in this, imagine what I could have. Then I'm like, I had a pretty good career, which is proof that you don't have to.
Right.
That it can be done, and if there's anyone who's a perfect example of that, you don't have to be groomed to make it, at any level. I'm proof of that. So.
Do you coach guys with kind of a Brett Favre feeling about them, or do you?
I'm tough.
Like, how would you have coached yourself? You probably would have made yourself.
I would have killed him. There's a newfound respect for the guys who had to coach me in the past. But the one thing I will say about my career and being coachable, yeah, there were decisions that you scratched your head, but the guys who I played with or coached me, I think would all say the same thing. That guy was determined to do whatever it would take to be the best, from a studying standpoint and physically. I practiced every day. I never missed practice, regardless of the injury. And that goes back to the latter part of my career where, I looked like I was walking on eggshells. Stuff was hurting, but it meant a lot to me. And so I think that made it easier for any coach or any player when he's like, this guy's, man, he's willing to do whatever it takes. And I think that's such an important part of my career. I know it is.
Yeah. It's Brett Favre with us on the ticket for a few more minutes. All right, let me bring up 05, 06, and 07 because in each of those off seasons, you talked about retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And I always felt, being a pretty strong loyalist of yours, that wasn't you were tired of playing. It was your leverage to try to get them to get you some help. They had tons of cap room. They were drafting defense. They were drafting your successor.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like you got the feeling with the new guys brought in, Ted Thompson in particular, but the new guys, that they were worried about the next era, and this was your chance at leverage of, hey, I might be done. Is there any truth to that? Or?
No, I wouldn't. And that's a fair estimate. I just find it hard to believe that a GM and/or coach would, first of all, be worried about the next era when their job's on the line today. Now, that's not to say that it wouldn't happen or has happened. I think you do have to kind of look to the future a little bit, and drafting, for example, Aaron Rodgers. Perfectly okay with that. But, you do have to be concerned about winning now, unless you're looking forward to getting a high pick the next year or whatever. But I think for me, it was the timing. I you know, I don't know how many games straight in 05 at the end of the year. And if we didn't win the Super Bowl, which I only was fortunate enough to be on one winning team, which tells you how tough it is. If we didn't win it at the end of the year, which, you know, 19 out of 20 we didn't, then it was a disappointing year for me. And as I was later on in my career, it just got more and more disappointing, even though I may have had a great year. And the last thing I wanted to think about was football. And so when I was asked that question about playing or not playing, I could have easily said, which I probably should have, we'll see in July. I would say at this point I can't commit to a team. I just, you know, I'm burnt out, which was true. That's not to say in July I wouldn't be recharged. It's kind of like when you go on summer break in school.
Sure.
You can't wait. But then first day of school, you're kind of looking forward to it again. You know, and that's the way I was. And it was just the timing of the questions and how I answered them really were the major players in it.
Okay. I thought players don't have a lot of power sometimes, and that's one way to use leverage.
You know, I just wasn't that type of player, regardless of what people think. It's like holding out.
Okay.
Never held out. And Bus, my agent, is here. He knows. Had it ever gotten to a point where, say, and it never did, Bus would have said, if you hold out, you'll get a lot of money. I wouldn't have done it. He knows that as well as me. It just wasn't in my nature. I would never, as I think someone said back then, I was holding the team hostage or something like that. I would never. The team was so much more important to me than individually.
Do you have any idea the conflict that and look, we all have one path, but the loyal fan base up there, it was like mom and dad were getting a divorce and we couldn't do anything about it. And to this day, it's profoundly weird. It
made for good TV when we came back.
It made for fabulous TV, but
that's what I was thinking the whole time. Boost the ratings.
Right. It's a weird story to this day, and I know people want to see it even now make it go away, but it's just.
And I'm not so sure about that. You know.
You don't think the fans want to see it go away?
I think some probably. As far as coming back to Green Bay.
Yeah, I want you and the Packers and to be great friends again, and it makes me a little crazy that it's not that case. And it's probably too bad.
We'll do it one day.
Yeah. All right, two more quick things then. One, you always used to say the phrase, until they drag me off the field.
Mm-hmm. Came close.
I was going to say 321 consecutive starts. I think everyone would say you're the ultimate warrior in the NFL in terms of that. But it couldn't have ended any other way, really, right?
My last play, I actually the only time in my career where I was actually completely out. It was 10, 15 seconds. Playing Chicago at University of Minnesota.
Miserable night.
Miserable night. The dome had collapsed. You know, our season had gone from bad to worse. Didn't have to play in a game. Wanted to. I remember telling myself in pregame, "You're an idiot. You know, what do you stand to gain in this?" But I thought, you know, I've survived this game. I'll be fine. And one of the most minor hits that I've ever. The guy didn't even hit me. He pushed me. I threw the ball, and the field was, of course, solid ice. It was like concrete. And just pushed me, and I slip, fall, and nothing hurt. Hit the left side of my head, and the next thing I remember, I was snoring, as our trainer's kind of shaking, saying, "You okay?" And when I look at the footage, even though it wasn't long, there's that 10, 15 second period where I was asleep. And as I got up and kind of shook the cobwebs off, and I remember looking at our trainer, Shug. I said, "Shug, what are the Bears doing here?" He's like, "Come on over here with me, buddy." When I kind of started figuring it out as I was getting to the sidelines, I thought, now if there was ever a time where the writing is on the wall, this is it. Maybe a little too late.
Yeah.
For the cumulative damage that you've done, you know. Now it's probably a little too late to say, okay, I'm going to save my body. Went in, took a shower, got some hot cocoa. It was really cold, and got a hot dog and said,
That's it.
That's it. I'm going to watch the next 2 or 3.
Okay. All the records, all the accomplishments, but you're also known as a fantastic prank guy. Is there a particular signature prank of your career where you got someone, or was it just a series of having guys pull your finger in the huddle and things like that? Is there one in particular you're proud of?
Man, there's so many. I think to me, the funniest that my wife always gets mad when I tell this one. I had this remote control fart machine. And the first time I used it, our PR director in Green Bay for years, who retired and is not doing well, Lee Remmel, had been there 50 years. We're on the bus in Chicago. We're playing a Monday night game, and I'm the third seat back. And I didn't have a certain seat. But I'm sitting with our strength coach at the time, Kent Johnston, who was the best man at my wedding, who's a good old country boy from Crawford, Texas. And I show him the remote control, and he's like, "What's that, bud?" And I said, and so Holmgren's sitting right in the front right seat, and Lee Remmel sits right behind him. And it's, as you can imagine, quiet on the bus. We're going to play Chicago. It's dark, Monday night game. We get five or so minutes underway, and I just hit that button, and it sounds like Lee's got gas, but doesn't know it. You know, you got to remember he's like 75, 80 years old.
That can happen.
It may be true.
Yes, that's a legitimate concern.
So for 20 minutes, man, and it had 4 different ones, and I'm just, whoop. I mean, it's just, and I could see Kent Johnston was dying. He wore the tightest Wranglers. Now he was dying. So, but he knew he couldn't laugh really out. But I could see Holmgren. I remember at the end, Holmgren starts just. He wouldn't turn, so he was laughing. Because had he known it was remote control, I think he'd have killed me.
Yeah.
But I think he's like, Lee has no idea.
They generally revolve around flatulence. Also, I saw you were up to speed
you like
on
that,
this
huh?
picture.
All of a sudden, I've been seeing that. My daughter sent me that the other day. She's in law school with Loyola in New Orleans. She sent me those. She goes, "Any idea where I can get a pair of these? My boyfriend wants a pair of them." I'm like,
so we're speaking of the rolled-up jorts that you're going with there.
I don't think it were called that back then.
That is fantastic. All right, well, listen, you don't know what a thrill this is. I really appreciate your time. If we could get one more thing from you, that's a wacky radio liner, so we can play that again and again behind your back.
Oh, yeah.
But if you don't mind doing that, we'd be appreciative.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Hi, okay, you didn't fill in your name.
No, the blank is just, you put your name in there, yeah.
Surprised me there. I'm like, who is this? Hi, this is Brett Favre, and I never listened to the Bob and Dan show on Never?
Do you?
No, I never do.
Perfect.
It's true.
Oh, okay, so we're being honest.
Yeah.
here.
Yes.
Hi, this is Brett Favre, and I never listened to the Bob and Dan show on Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket.
Beautiful. You're the best, dude. All right, it is 1:56 on the ticket.